Welcome to the Foundry, where leaders are forged daily. I'm your host, George Roberts. It is no surprise that entrepreneurship provides one of the greatest proving grounds for leadership talent. Each week, we interview an entrepreneur to hear their journey from founder to their most recent successes. As a real estate entrepreneur for over a decade, I have a particular interest in founders that have forged their way in the world of construction and multifamily real estate. Along the way, I promise to keep it lively by including entrepreneurs from other lines of business as well. If you would like to be featured on this show, send an email to george@horizonmultifamily.com with the subject heading Foundery Podcast.
Hello, I'm your guest host today, Mary L. Roberts. This week we interview Dr. George Roberts III, a founder of Walnut Grove Homes, a residential construction company that reached seven-figure status in 2021. Dr. Roberts has been a real estate investor for over a decade. He is also an apartment owner and a founder of Horizon Multifamily, a commercial multifamily real estate acquisition company. Dr. Roberts, what was the most memorable job you worked before turning to entrepreneurship? I can't talk. There you go.
I was a bioscientist for over a decade. I had the pleasure of working in the fields of microbiology, physiology, and genomics. My research has garnered over 600 citations. Math buffs will appreciate that I have an Irish number of 5, which is like a Kevin Bacon parlor game for scientists.
What is that about?
Paul Erdős was the founder of modern network science. So after the Kevin Bacon game came out, bioscientists and other scientists as well thought it would be pretty fun to figure out how closely we were connected to Paul Erdős. So just about anybody who has done research in any sort of a mathematical or quantitative field probably has some connection to Paul Erdős.
That sounds great. Now, how did you get started in real estate?
My wife, who is also our interviewer today, my wife and I became accidental landlords in 2010. We purchased a new home at a time that it was not very good time to sell our current home. So we kept our current old house as a rental. When we finally sold the property 7 years later, I realized how much I had come to appreciate the steady cash flow that being a landlord provided. At that point, I wanted to get back into the game, but I decided that I would do it right this time. This time, I would leverage the power of the economies of scale offered by multifamily real estate.
Did you have an aha moment at some point when you realized that the financial trajectory you were on wasn't enough to get you to your financial goals?
After helping to launch Walnut Grove Homes in 2016, I was bitten by the entrepreneurial bug. As Warren Buffett puts it, if you don't find a way to make money while you sleep, you'll work until you die. I began to focus ever more attention on entrepreneurship and building passive income streams. I wanted nothing more than to go out there and do it again. At this point, I already knew that I loved being a landlord. Now, I wanted to do it at scale in multifamily.
What is the origin story of your current enterprise?
I met Paul Prokop, a multifamily investor, at a meetup. I could see that he was as serious as a heart attack. I decided that he was the investor that I wanted to work with, and he ended up asking me to join Horizon Multifamily just before the pandemic pushed all of the face-to-face meetings underground.
What is the next big step for your enterprise?
For me, that would be hiring a team of virtual assistants. I can't wait to leverage the great ideas coming from the Horizon Multifamily team.
What would the virtual assistants do?
Well, the first thing is they'd most likely be producing this podcast. We have a lot of things that we need to do, a lot of people we need to reach out to, and a lot of content to produce. That's something that's very important in the multifamily real estate syndication business. It's all about building relationships. So they would be there behind the scenes helping to make that happen.
What has been the greatest influence on your entrepreneurial career?
Dale Carnegie. It's his focus on communication and relationship building that have helped me more than anything.
What is the one bit of advice you would give your younger self or your sons?
Start now. Whatever you are doing today, the best day to start was yesterday.
So what is the youngest that you should be able to start?
I would say at any point in your life, I could imagine young entrepreneurs starting with something like a podcast or a YouTube channel and monetizing it. I think you're never too early to start. And in fact, our youngest boy, George, I've gotten him interested in investing in the stock market. And this is something really exciting for me because even when he was quite young, maybe 9 years old, we would discuss Warren Buffett and value investing. And he really got the concepts. And so we actually go through the work. We go through all of the effort of picking companies. We look at various metrics. We talk about the industry and the exactly how each company, you got to understand, Benjamin Graham would call it the business owner's perspective. You got to understand how the company makes money. If you're going to invest in a stock, you should know ideally as much about the company as an executive of the company would know.
How much does he invest?
Well, currently he's doing some chores around the house, and so the amounts that he's investing are quite modest. However, I will say that I do believe he has a good business mind, and his investments have done extraordinarily well. Over a time frame that the S&P has climbed about 20%. Last I checked, his investments were up closer to 50%.
And how old is he?
Currently 12 years old, and I'm very proud of him, by the way.
So he's been doing this for how long then?
Well, let's see. We actually started to build the understanding. That would have been about 3 years ago, but the actual investments were probably made mainly within the last 6 months.
Great. What quote do you find most inspiring?
My favorite quote comes to us through Hannibal, through the Latin language, aut inveniam viam aut faciam. Translated, it means, I shall find the path. If no pathway exists, I shall blaze the trail. For me, this quote speaks to the number one trait of successful people in any field, which is determination.
What inspires you?
More than anything else, it's being able to help other people, whether it's through networking and sharing real estate insight or through charitable giving. There is nothing better than to be able to help other people. I've never regretted a dollar that I've given away to a worthy cause. And I think most people would agree. And yet most of us probably have a garage or basement full of stuff that we never use. For me, that is a great reminder not to focus on stuff, but to focus on people and how I can help them.
What advice would you give a new entrepreneur?
Business is war, and the ones who succeed are always fighting for an edge. Learn to love the struggle, and you will be rewarded beyond your wildest dreams. Most importantly, through freedom and personal growth, but of course, monetarily as well. I'll give you a bonus. You only live once, so give your plan, your dream, your entrepreneurial vision 100%. You don't want to look back and say to yourself, I might have. Don't fall victim to the classic deathbed regret. Just go for it.
Well, thank you, Dr. Roberts. Send us Send us out with a memorable story for your entrepreneurial journey.
So earlier this year, I was able to look down Westminster Street. This is a street that my sister and my brother-in-law and I had built up through Walnut Grove Homes. And I was able to look down this street and see 3 sold signs. I could say that my father's dream was finally a reality. My sister and I were able to name the street Westminster after our father's hometown in Maryland. He'd wanted to build homes on this land, but the financial crisis had put his dreams on hold. It was so rewarding to see the dream become a reality.